Previously on The Haley O Show.
A very interesting guy has just stepped into studio. We've got Lysle Turner with us, and you definitely made an impact when you did an interview last week. And the people that you chatted to at African Bank were telling me all about you and were kind of inspired by your message. So I thought, let me try and get you onto the Haley O Show.
Awesome.
And learn a bit more about you.
Great, thank you so much.
So you're from Pretoria. Did you just drive in now?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, well, thank you for coming that way. I was in Pretoria yesterday. It's further than you think.
Yeah, I know it is.
Well, thank you for your time. And so, Lysle, you've been climbing mountains since you were, what, 10?
Yeah, about 13. Call it
13.
13, yeah.
And you've climbed Kilimanjaro 6 times.
Yeah, that's right.
People compare climbing Kilimanjaro to the Comrades. Have you done the Comrades before?
No. Although I would like to, but I could relate to that, definitely.
I mean, how would you describe climbing Kilimanjaro?
I always say to people, Kili is very much a mental game. You got to take it very slowly, and nothing. What happens on the first few days can prepare you for summit night. So as long as you're mentally prepared on that evening, it'll stand you in good stead, and hopefully you'll reach the summit. But don't take it lightly, because you must take your training seriously beforehand.
What training do you do to climb a mountain? I've never had the desire to climb a mountain. Never.
Look, the main thing is just to start getting out into the outdoors and being active for a few hours a day. Even if it's at a slow pace, at least you can build up that patience and just build up that routine of getting into a mental state, of just being out there for a few hours. But then you have to take your cardio training very seriously, increasing your VO2 max levels.
VO2?
Yeah, so you can perform better at high altitude.
High altitude, because
Yes.
that's what nails you. It's the high altitude.
Definitely.
Hey? And now the 6th time you did Kilimanjaro, you decide to run up and run down.
Yes. That
Did
is
you
correct.
run right to the very top?
Yes.
How do you run at such altitude?
When I was doing the Jacaranda climb in July, I did run on top for about 30 minutes just to see how my body reacts there. So at least I had a bit of a taste of running at really high altitude. But being active for 12 hours continuously at that altitude was just a next step up for me. So
Was it the hardest thing you've ever done?
Definitely, I'd say so. Like I was at breaking points
Many times.
At many times, yeah. At some point I stopped, and I was definitely at breaking point, because I was subjected to 2 hours more in the darkness, because there was a storm in the morning, so I had to leave earlier. And I stopped. I took off all my clothes on the upper part of my body, and I wrapped my emergency blanket around my chest, and then put all my clothes back and continued. But if I didn't have that, it was game over for me.
Because you were so cold.
Yeah, I just couldn't warm up. I was struggling to keep warm.
And do you do this alone?
Yes, look, that's I did solo and unsupported. So you got to carry all your gear, or if you want to jeopardize weight, you drink from the streams, or you just carry the sub minimum. But so there was a point where the evening before I nearly left my emergency blanket behind, so I'm very grateful.
And that was what saved you
Yeah,
and
I'm very
made it
grateful.
possible.
Yeah.
So Lysle Turner ran up and down Kilimanjaro in 11 hours,
Yeah,
is that right?
That's correct.
And I mean, how many people have done that? How high is it?
20,000 feet, so 5,895 meters. So it's a big little hill.
Wow, so he ran up and down in 11 hours, and you're braving the elements, you're braving the altitude, and you're doing it alone. Wow. Okay, well, it is inspiring stuff, and there's all a cause behind it. I know you've just been hiking in South America, but you raise awareness for Huntington's disease,
Yes,
is that right?
That's correct.
And why Huntington's disease?
Well, HD, or we call it HD or
HD.
Huntington's. I believe any charity is kind of personal, and it is a hereditary condition, so it's been in my family.
Okay.
So it kind of pinpoints the deep desire for me to bring awareness to the condition. So I'm blessed to not be affected, but you live a life in dedication to people that aren't as fortunate as you.
Sure. No, that's very well put. But tell me now, I've heard of HD, you've heard of Huntington's disease, but I couldn't actually tell someone what it was. So I just looked it up this morning. Maybe you can tell people exactly how it affects you.
Yeah.
And how many people are affected?
Okay. Well, firstly, just to answer how many people are affected in South Africa, there hasn't been a prevalent study here yet, so that's mainly what we're working towards. But Huntington's it's a neurodegenerative brain disorder. So if the individual, it kind of affects, and you see them with kind of uncontrolled movements, like similar to Parkinson's, but although conditions are very different.
Okay.
They hugely affects like the emotional turmoil side of things, and their ability to reason in everyday life is jeopardized. So it starts with their movements, then their speech, and it's a very brutal condition in my regard, because once you show signs of it, you can live up to 20 years with the condition just getting progressively worse.
Wow.
So it's not like another condition that it just hits you and that's your life. But the pressure on the family are always great, and the family dynamics are tested because of the individual.
Sure. And tell me, at what age did you test yourself for it?
My father was test gene positive, so I didn't need to go through the tests, but that only happened last year. I was in Canada at one of the centers for Huntington's there, and I started my foundation before I knew if I would need to go for testing or not. So it was kind of that you have to be really committed, because some people, if they know they kind of clear, they just lose their passion. But that was my commitment.
So you started the foundation before you knew.
So then, it was a blessing, but it hasn't changed my kind of drive for it. Because you live in dedication for those people.
Wow. All right. So it was only recently.
Yeah, I guess it's been recent, but a lot of hectic times. But it's been a good journey.
Wow. Okay, so your foundation, what's it called?
It's called the Turner Together Foundation.
Turner Together Foundation.
So the kind of values that it's been based around are people belonging to a collective consciousness, and people who are pioneers, to make a meaningful difference to humanity. So that's kind of values that it's built around. And then we work with people impacted with Huntington's and largely raising awareness too.
Yeah, because people, as I said, I couldn't quite describe what it was.
Yeah.
So it's good to talk about it and let people know. And now, how does the mountaineering tie in with the foundation?
Well, that's kind of my driving force. I think, going back to my speed climb, I would never been able to put myself through that if I hadn't linked it to a greater purpose. So every time I climb, I link it to HD on a fundraising and awareness perspective.
Okay.
We climbed it 2012 with a few of my mates, Kurt Quato, which is a Mozambican 400-meter hurdler, 3-time Olympian.
Oh, wow.
Lysle Clark and Nuno, my best friend, and that was the initial fundraiser and kind of awareness thing for Huntington's. But before that, I've come to learn to leverage off other causes as well. With the Jacaranda Let's Give Killy Horns, although we did drive a rhino campaign, the people aren't educated on HD, so it's nice to leverage of that in a sense that you educate them, and at least you have a bit of a buy-in from the people, because if it's solely on Huntington's, it's a lot tougher, because it's not as out there.
Okay, and you've just been in South America climbing the name of the mountain that I always struggle to pronounce.
Aconcagua.
Yeah. Aconcagua.
It is a bit of a tongue
and
twister.
Is that the highest peak in South America?
Yes, that's the highest peak outside of Asia. So
outside of Asia,
yeah.
And I see on Instagram, there's a post of you looking absolutely freezing cold. The snow is so deep, the visibility is almost zero. And this was day 18 of your climb.
That's correct.
Where you realized you weren't going to be able to summit.
Yeah.
That must have been a tough, a tough pill to swallow.
No, definitely.
But still, you still got up there, hey?
Yeah. Look,
6,600 meters up.
Yeah. Look, I believe in those situations to subjugate ego is one of the, it's the least kind of learned lesson, because, people often have a summit at all costs attitude, and
that's when lives are lost.
Even on that trip, that's where people didn't make it home. And you know what I mean? For my group had turned around initially, and having climbed solo before, I just continued because it hadn't reached that point where I was ready to turn, or the element said to me, or where your gut says to you, you've had enough, and you need to turn. And I knew one group ahead of me, so I pushed quite hard to catch up to them when I did. We got radio calls from base camp to say they've shut down the mountain because there was avalanches on the south face, which is on the opposite side to where we were. So, but they had done tests, and the kind of results were that no one can continue. So it is tough. I can't say it doesn't bug me, but the mountains are always there, and you always have opportunity to go back.
And what is that climb like in terms of difficulty and everything you have to experience?
Look, I came off a year of training really hard for my speed climb. Did my speed climb in November and then left in January. So I came off
you were well prepared.
Very well prepared. But I really enjoyed it because you carry a lot of your own gear, whereas
you're a sucker for punishment.
No, look, it's great. It's a really nice mountain. You do work a lot harder than others because you carry a lot heavier loads, but that's kind of my style of what I enjoy doing because, fewer people will venture that way when it gets a lot more difficult.
Wow. And so then you went solo, and then let me read what I'm going to read what you said. Day 18, stopped in our tracks at 6,600 meters due to avalanche risk at Aconcagua. I continued on solo after my group turned around before receiving the radio call from base camp to abort all summit attempts. Going strong with less than 300 meters to go was a bitter pill to swallow, but knowing when to subjugate ego is one of life's most essential, least learned skills. A summit at all costs attitude has cost many lives, and this trip was an example of that. Getting home safe is mandatory. Being acclimatized, I considered staying on to attempt a speed climb, but with 108 kilometers per hour wind speeds for the next 8 days, it was home time for me. Sometimes things happen that seem out of your control. You just have to keep your chin up and believe it's part of the greater purpose. A journey to stand on top of the world continues. So is Everest next?
I would like to say it's next, but I may do a few other lower peaks, more technical climbs beforehand. But, my speed climb was also very much pushing my limits to something like that, because I don't feel you push your limits. Well, I haven't pushed my limits greatly on other mountains than that day. So Everest is on the cards. I've been putting it off for a few years, just because of work-wise and kind of time, because it's 2 months of the year. But I'm definitely want to venture there because not many South Africans have done. Sure. And I'm a lot younger than the people that have gone so far. So it's definitely
could be the youngest South African to summit.
If I'm before 28 or so, that's about, and I'm 24. So I have time.
Oh, you have time.
But yeah, I'd like to also experiment climbing without supplemental oxygen because no South African has ever climbed over 8,000 meters without oxygen. So it is.
What do your parents say? My mother would have a fit if she heard this.
I don't know. From boarding school days, my parents have just let me be. Look, I climbed the first time with my family, so it's
okay. So they're also into
their own fault.
They got you hooked. Yeah. Well, you certainly have a strength in will and a strength in character, and I know, you were Mr. Pretoria, but there's a lot more to you than a beauty pageant. What do you do now? Are you a full-time model or?
Not really. I still have kind of ambition to get a men's health cover. That's one of my main ambitions. But I focus more on work since 2012, building my career. And
in what?
I'm working in the green energy sector at the moment, amongst other businesses. And yeah, that takes up most of my time. And then working with the non-profit organization, my career's got to fuel what you're really passionate about. So it's key to be
For
good in business.
24, you've got it all figured out. I mean, hey, it looks like you've put so much thought into what you spend your hours doing. It's quite inspiring for me, who's all over the place. Like every day I'm doing a million and one things at once, but you seem to have, you've got this cause that you believe in, like raising awareness for HD. You've got your mountaineering that you're passionate about, and your career that kind of can support the two. So it's really nice to hear about. And if people want to get in touch with you or support your cause or find out more information about Huntington's, how can they do that?
I use Twitter quite a bit, so it's at Lysle_Turner.
Lysle, Lysle.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a bit of a funny one. And then I'm doing a lot of work with the Huntington's Disease Youth Organization, so that's hdyo.org. They're based in the UK, and we're mainly working with the youth around the world. People that we say is impacted with HD, so not necessarily affected, but whether it's family or friends that people type in Huntington's in Google, and it's all these terrible stories, and it's so brutal. So we've created a website that's more inviting, and and it's in a lot of different languages, so we're doing a lot of translating. So for now that'll be best.
To offer people assistance, it's not just going to scare them half to death.
No, it's very true.
Okay, well, Lysle, it's great to meet you. I'm sorry we have to rush, but
problem.
Pretoria traffic, what can you do?
Yeah.
And all the best for the weekend and whatever your next big adventure is.
Thank you.
And I hope we can keep in touch and support you along the way and chat to you when you're on your next peak.
Definitely.
Like waist deep in snow.
Balls.co.za. Balls.co.za. Visual Radio.